federal judge on Thursday temporarily blocked the Trump administration from sending National Guard troops to Chicago. The ruling came 2 days after 200 soldiers with the Texas National Guard arrived in Illinois. The Trump administration said they needed the troops because protesters were targeting federal agents and there is, quote, a danger of rebellion. Illinois sued the Trump administration, calling the deployment unconstitutional. A federal judge in Chicago blocked the deployment for at least 2 weeks, saying she found no substantial evidence that a danger of rebellion is happening. The soldiers were sent to protect federal facilities and law enforcement agents in the Chicago area. Their duties included crowd control and de-escalation at protests. The soldiers are not allowed to make any arrests, but they can detain someone until local law enforcement arrives. While the legal fight moves forward, we wanted to get some insight into how Guard deployments get authorized. We spoke with Kate Kosminski, who works on military personnel policy for the Center for New American Security. That's a bipartisan national security think tank in Washington, D.C. We asked her to outline how the president can federalize National Guard troops.
So there are different parts of Title X that authorize the president to federalize National Guard troops. And historically, the provision within Title X that has been used requires the consent of the receiving governor to receive those federal troops. So the exact verbiage within Title X is that the president can send federalized troops in through the governor, where the deployment of troops from other states to a second state, where the complications are there is that this is the federal government using state National Guard and under Title 32 orders. So those activated National Guardsmen still report to their governor, but the federal government is paying the cost of using them in another state. Not at the request of the receiving state, and in fact at the pushback of the governor of those states. So what we're really seeing play out is this tension in the federalist system between the chief executives of states versus the chief executive of the country. So Title X would place them under the authority of the president. And when we think of Title X deployments of National Guard or reservists, that is essentially the authority that is the same as when we sent them abroad to fight wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And there are even stricter guardrails against the domestic use of guardsmen under Title X orders because of the firm belief on both sides of the aisle over American history that we are very proud of the fact that we train our guardsmen to be the most lethal fighting force in the world as part of our total force with our active duty and reserve service members, and that we don't want to use that capability domestically for law enforcement purposes. And in fact, that the use domestically of the military for law enforcement purposes is barred by the Posse Comitatus Act, which takes us back to the 1870s. But there's also a firm foundation in kind of the principles of the United States. When we look back to the forming of the nation and the forming of the Constitution, right? The overlooked constitutional amendment about not having to quarter soldiers, the use, our reaction to the British having a standing army in the United States, and our reaction to the Brits using their military for law enforcement purposes, like collecting taxes in response to the Townsend Acts. And so there is a firm rooting in both U.S. History and tradition, but also in the law against using the domestic use of the National Guard or the domestic use of the military for law enforcement purposes.
You know, and I know we're focusing a lot on this big picture here, but I know you also know about the small scale, what it means for these National Guard members to put their lives on hold and go, 1,000 miles away to do activities outside of their home.
I think it's worth highlighting, regardless of where the general public comes down on the policy or whether it's a good idea or a bad idea to use the guard. We need to separate out those individual professional guardsmen who do not have a choice in the matter. And we shouldn't know whether or not those individual service members agree with or disagree with any given policy, and they should be treated with the utmost respect and received with the professionalism and the training that they have engaged in. I think it is notable that while political tensions have been really high, whether it was the LA deployment of the National Guard or those active duty Marines in LA or the deployment in DC, that we have not seen any issues whatsoever with our guardsmen being involved in any type of nefarious action. And so I do think it is worth highlighting for the general public that our service members deserve the respect and the dignity of the training and professionalism that they bring to bear in these deployments.
An Austin-based startup could give homeowners a new way to keep the lights on when the electric grid has power problems. Now we're getting an inside look at the operation. Find out how they aim to provide savings and peace of mind for customers.